Hey, what's up? It's Sue. Welcome back to my channel. Today I thought I'd do a quick get ready with me as I just talk about living alone. I want to do a get ready with me just because I want to be doing something as I'm talking, and why not today on date night? I'm going to see my boyfriend and I just want to look good. It's a gloomy day, but I'm gonna have a really bright, nice, shiny makeup, so let's get going. So let's talk about moving out of your parents' house. So honestly, I think that any amount of change is absolutely terrifying, which is why moving out was such a big deal for me. I think that for a lot of people, they're in a circumstance where they don't have to move out, but they just really want to. And I was definitely in that boat where I honestly loved living with my parents. They forced me to do things like go out to dinner and go to the park for a walk. Especially because of COVID, I had something to do because I could talk to my parents every day and my sister, and that was like really fun. When you go to college, you don't really have that family time as much, and then I got to spend 8 or 9 months living with them and hanging out with them, and that was really quite awesome. I will say though that I felt myself regressing. So, hold on, I can't do two things at once. What am I doing? A foundation. So I found that when I was home, I kind of went back to the way that I was back in like middle or high school, where I was really like expecting my parents to cook for me and to really just be there for me, and I wasn't sure I liked that. I was losing all of the independence that I had gained and that confidence that I had when I was in college. And so eventually I decided to move out. I started working in February, so I had the means to move out, and I think my parents were personally like offended because, well, why would I move out if I was having such a good time at home and things were great? But it took some time to convince them that I was ready, and I had spent all of college being without them, and all of a sudden I felt like I was a child and trying to convince my parents again that I had to leave. Anyways, leaving is scary, and I think that anybody that tells you to grow up and not be worried about that kind of change is really being narrow about the situation. I think any amount of change is daunting and should not be taken lightly. If you have a lot of anxiety like I do, that not planning things out causes a lot of anxiety, and when you move out and you want to have everything perfect, that's where a lot of the anxiety can come from. And you just have to realize that like your first apartment or wherever you go is not going to be everything you ever dreamed of. I mean, it could be, but most likely not. And you have to remember that you can only go up from here. Don't worry about it not being perfect, and just enjoy what you have and where you're at. I have a lot of anxieties about living in New York. I've only been living here for 2 weeks now that I'm filming this. Probably a lot more by the time I upload this. And my anxieties can stem from 3 basic things. And they're all anxieties that I've had throughout my life, and they're just being projected onto me living here now. The first being that I don't have any friends here. So I grew up in New Jersey, so I have friends who will come out into New York City, hang out for the day, or go out to the bar for the night, and then they'll go back home. But I don't really have any friends here that I was really close with. All of my college friends live across the country, so I haven't been able to see a lot of them. Yeah, so I don't have a lot of friends here, and that was my big worry, that I would just be, not being social this entire time. The second thing I was worried about was working from home. My apartment is a lot smaller than the house that I had, just left with my parents, and so I was worried that I was never going to leave my house. And honestly, it kind of manifested because from Monday to Thursday this week, I didn't leave my house, and then on Thursday, I forced myself to go to Trader Joe's just so that I could leave the house. That was kind of scary to me, that I could so easily just never leave. Because, anything you need, you can order in, and if I'm working and I'm busy, I just may not be taking that time to go for a walk or go to the gym, or not that I ever really go to the gym, but to do something active with my body. I had been, basically moving back and forth from my desk chair to my bed And that was just insane to me, to think that I was being so inactive, and that was so scary. I need to concentrate on my eyebrows. Okay, apparently nothing can save my eyebrows today. My third anxiety was about money. When you leave your house and you are being independent for the first time, that is so scary. And I had so much anxiety about, how do I budget? How do I spend my money wisely? Like, what do I care about in my money? And it doesn't help that I am a shopping addict, and I love buying things, and I love buying things for people. Like, anytime I leave my house, I know that I am spending an exorbitant amount of money. That's just how I feel. And even when I do stay home, I do end up online shopping, ordering in, and so I was just really worried that I would run out of money. Especially living in New York, where everything is really expensive, and most notoriously rent is really expensive. I wanted to make sure that where I was living was worth how much I was paying. When people comment like, why would you live in New York when you can live for the same price in like Texas for like a quarter of that with a much larger house? And I always say to that, I don't want to live in Texas. Like, people who want to live in New York want to live in New York, and no other place really satisfies that, I think. And so my anxieties have manifested in several ways. The first being that I would get super anxious about taking the subway at a station that I've never been to before. And so I've taken the subway, quite a few times before I moved here, when I came to New York a lot. And I had run into problems like, when you swipe into the wrong way, like a train that's going downtown but you need to go uptown, and that feels super embarrassing because you have to swipe twice and you just wasted $2.75. And so I would remember that, and then I would, on Google Maps, I would look up which way was the way to go uptown or downtown. And that really is not that big of a deal. I just have to like pay attention to signs when I get there. But I would get so nervous about going in the wrong direction and wasting $2.75 that I would think about it. Like, every time I had to go to a new train station, I would spend the night before thinking about it and remembering which direction to go into so that I wouldn't go in the wrong way. And that is honestly, that's madness. Like, nobody should be thinking that hard about subways. Another thing that I've been really anxious about is food. I've always been really problematic with food. I sometimes forget to eat, sometimes I don't want to eat, even though I haven't eaten in a while, which is, problematic. But when you're living alone, you are sort of on your own about that. I mentioned this in Adulting Things I Learned post-grad, but finding foods that you have to eat all the time, 3 times a day, is so exhausting. And it's something that you never think of growing up, that, I have to plan my meals out. It can also really be fun, and you can go in whatever dietary preference you are looking forward to, but at the same time, it's exhausting because you have to spend all that time planning out your food. And, after a long day from work, the last thing I want to do is cook. This eyeshadow look is looking very scary right now, but I will tone it down. I also want to say, about being anxious, is that it's completely chill to be anxious on your own, but there are ways to solve it, and I find that pretty much the only thing that will get me to stop being anxious about something is to either let it happen or work it out. If you're anxious about living alone, then don't live alone, or do it. You can only go one or the other. And you can stay scared or you can work around it. I have been trying to reach out to some people that I know that live in New York, even if we're not that close, just so that I can meet them, expand my circle, and just have something to do. I think that when I'm stuck at home and I'm just worrying about being anxious, like, I will be anxious about being anxious, that's when it really brings out the worst in me. I would go on YouTube and watch all these videos, like things you should know about before moving out of your house, or things to learn before moving to New York, and they would terrify me because, I don't know, you glorify living somewhere, and if that sort of gets broken, you can get really crushed. I have always been living in that imaginary world where everything is so great in New York. I guess my take is that you can do it. I already feel that in the 2 weeks that I've been living here, I feel more grown up. I think about, when should I go grocery shopping? How much should I be spending in a week? Which are things that I never really thought about before. And the truth is, even if you don't know how to do something, there are so many ways for you to figure it out. It's not like you're ever alone. There are resources online that will help you along the way. It's not something to be overthinking about. Definitely not to the extent that I was. I remember before I moved in, after I signed my lease, I basically cried every single day. Every single day. I just wasn't ready to be moving. But the truth is, I'm here now and it's really not that big of a deal. I'm working it out and I'm taking it day by day, and so far it's been really incredible. Alright, let me change my outfit. Alright, I'm all set. I feel like this video was a complete mess, but hopefully it was a little bit insightful. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Hello, let's focus. Okay. Honestly, considering I was only half paying attention, my makeup looks pretty good.